Hello, welcome to today's Member Month webinar. I'm Rachel Tolhurst. I'm a board member of the UK and Ireland IABC, and I'm also an internal comms specialist for change and transformation at the Civil Aviation Authority. For more than 40 years, the IABC's Gold Quill Awards have recognised and awarded excellence in strategic communication worldwide, promoting a global standard for communications. Gold Quill is the only awards programme that honours the dedication, innovation and passion of communicators on a global scale. In today's webinar, we're showcasing the value of entering awards and sharing top tips on how to create a winning entry. Whether or not you decide to enter your work for Gold Quill, what you hear today will help you to benchmark your work against a global standard. I'm joined today by two speakers who between them have evaluated scores of Gold Quill entries and they've agreed to share their knowledge with you today. Neil Griffiths is an IABC Fellow and previous chair of the EMENA Blue Ribbon panel for over 10 years, and he will share the ingredients for winning Gold Quill entries. Anne-Marie Blake is an international executive board member for the IABC and current BRP chair. She will talk you through what evaluators are looking for and how to avoid common pitfalls. We've allowed plenty of time for questions, so we will use the hands up facility when we reach that. First of all, I'd like to hand over to Neil.
Whoops, sorry, struggling to find the mute button there. Thank you so much, Rachel, and hello everybody who's here live, as well as those who are watching this afterwards. It's a real pleasure to be here today. So there's two parts to this. Anne-Marie is going to talk to you much more about the specifics around what evaluators are looking for, but we thought that we would start with a bit about Gold Quill, some context that's going to set up how to enter and the things that you need to know to increase your chances of success. But there's a really general point I want to make up front about the fact that Gold Quill really brings together everything that IABC is all about. Fundamentally, Gold Quill celebrates excellence in communication from the past 12 months or past couple of years. And excellence really is what IABC is driving across all of its programming. So it starts with the IABC Global Standard, which articulates what a communication professional should know, the skills one needs to have acquired, and also some of the experience that you should have at sort of different levels of your career. And all of IABC's webinars and thought leadership then seeks to advance the various aspects of that global standard. And the certification program aims to kind of give that attestation that individuals are practicing according to those agreed principles and the elements within the global standard. And then, of course, our local chapters are the voice more locally for members around the world. So through Gold Quill, we get the opportunity to look at what's been executed across the globe through the submissions that come in. And it's really IABC's opportunity to celebrate the work that's been executed according to our globally accepted standards for excellence. And this focus around excellence really is something that's been at the core of IABC for decades. You know, the original research that IABC put out in the 70s and 80s helped to define what strategic communication looks like. And this thread continues throughout IABC's work today. And one of the things that I really love about Gold Quill is that it's a template for really excellent communication, the kind of communication you can implement on any communication project, whether or not your organization is asking for strategic communication. Or indeed, if you never actually want to enter an awards program. So I discovered the model, as Rachel indicated, over 10 years ago. And for me then, it was a real sort of when I was a ways into my career already, it was a way of me helping sort of organize the thinking that I had around what makes communication really impactful. For those of you who are new to Gold Quill, you may not know that an entry is divided into two parts. You have the work plan and the work sample. And depending on the category and the division that you enter, those two parts are differently weighted. The contents don't tend to really change. It's mostly the scoring that's different. But essentially, the work plan is the background to the project, and the sample is the project itself. So in the work plan, you have to help the evaluators see the thinking and strategy behind the work that you did. And in the sample, you show the work, and that really helps to bring the work plan to life to a really great extent. So a Gold Quill work plan is really well structured. We do make you demonstrate everything, but it does provide that framework, that really solid framework, as I mentioned before, for how to plan and document a good and strategic communication plan. And we thought, rather than just kind of talk to you about what these are, we would show you an example of a work plan that actually won a Gold Quill. And as we go through this, I'll talk to you about why I think it provides that strong model for strategic communication, as we said, whether or not you want to enter Gold Quill. So Helen, if it's okay, I'll just bring up those links that I shared with you. The first one is actually the About Gold Quill tab. It was that first link. So I just want to make a very general point, and I know Anne-Marie will probably make the same point later on. Everything you need to win a Gold Quill is on this website. There is no mystery around this. There's no wall around what makes you a winner. Everything that you need to win a Gold Quill is on the Gold Quill Awards website. But the one thing I wanted to share with you, and this is back on the other tab, Helen, sorry, is some of the resources that you'll find on the website. And this is an example of an award-winning work plan. So it's all covered in the entrant resources, but I'll just walk you through the various segments of the work plan, and you'll see, I hope, as we go through, how this sets you up to really create a solid and strategic communication plan. So it starts with the business need. So here it talks about the overall context for the project. And here what we get people to show us is why the communication mattered in the first place. What was the communication needed for? What was it? What was the environment in which the communication project was taking place? So the business need is really important. And one of the questions that this made me ask in my practice is, why this, why now? So we often get approached by our wonderful colleagues from around the business saying, you know, we need a video, or we need a t-shirt, or we need a mouse mat. And this segment and this question around why this, why now is super important, because it helps ground the communication activity in the context of the business and in that communication opportunity. Why do we need to do this? Why do we need to communicate on this topic? And so, as you'll see in all of the resources that are available to you, there's a variety of things that we look for, and Marie will talk a bit more about that. But this is that basic principle of why do we need this communication project. That's all contained in the business need. If we go into the second section, Helen, if you don't mind scrolling through, this is the stakeholder analysis segment. Again, really important for that context setting. Who are we trying to reach through this communication project? What is it that we know about them? Where do they stand in relation to the communication opportunity? What is it that we're seeking to achieve through our audiences? So this is a really great example of a very detailed audience analysis. It puts lots of information, leaves the evaluators in no doubt about who's central to the success of this, lots of information about their communication preferences, and lots of information that helps us see, when we get into the work sample, whether or not the work that you did was going to connect with that audience. So really important. And again, from a strategic communication perspective, we're not doing anything without considering the people who are going to be impacted and impactful on the communication project. Third section is goals and objectives. Really important. I know that Anne-Marie is going to talk at length about this in her segment, so I won't steal too much of her thunder here, but it is very, very difficult to be recognized through Gold Quill without having solid objectives and solid measurement. Now, this is a great example of how to present it here. So not only do we see in this segment here what the goal and objectives are, you also see how they're going to be measured and whether or not they were achieved. So really important to make that connection. There is a segment on measurement at the end, which we'll see, but really important here that the objectives, they're formulated using the SMART formula, and we actually go back and measure them at the end of the project to show what happened as a result of the communication. Really, really important. And again, Just in terms of our own practice here, these first 3 segments are all those things that we need to be doing in our communication work before we even get to the point of thinking about what we would do from a communication perspective. This is all of the background that we need to think through, why are we doing it? What are we hoping to achieve, and who's going to help us get there? The first 3 segments, really, really important. The 4th section is a narrative version of what you did. So as I said, the work sample is separate to the work plan, but in the work plan, we really need to understand how you went about the project. The sample will give us the tangibles, it'll give us the actual communication products. This is your opportunity to tell us how that all was woven together. So the solution overview is really important as well, to give the evaluators a sense of what happened. And there are certain things that we look for, and that's all signposted in the entrant materials on the Gold Quill website. We move, and this is also where the key messages show up. And I mean, this is a great example here of somebody really trying hard to show the evaluators how it all sort of pieced together, and how the key messages were woven in and out. So really, really comprehensive solution overview here. In section 5 of the work plan, we give you an opportunity to talk about what you bumped into when you were implementing this, anything that happened that you didn't necessarily expect, things that didn't go to plan, how you dealt with those challenges of implementation. So there's a whole segment around that. We ask you for your budget as part of this. If you don't disclose that, you will score very low. If you can't disclose that, you need to acknowledge why and help us understand, in a roundabout way, whether or not there was adequate resourcing around this. We don't necessarily need a line-by-line budget, but if the budget is absent, you will be penalised for that. So it's important to find a way around that. And then in section 6, we come back to that measurement and evaluation piece. Now, you saw before that they actually included the measurement in section 3. So this provides a bit more of a narrative version of the measurement here, but absolutely critical to understand that if you don't include measurement and evaluation, it will be very, very difficult to be recognized through Gold Quill. Each of these sections receives an individual score, and they make up the overall score for that section. So if you score weekly on any of these sections, it does impact your sort of overall performance in Gold Quill. But I'm probably taking points away from Anne-Marie here, but what I wanted to reinforce though was that this framework, this model for how you think about the communication project is incredibly relevant for us all. And you can apply this on projects large and small, and you don't necessarily have to be entering an awards program to be using this model. I'll probably pause there because I think that was really all I wanted to say. But I will just check that Anne-Marie didn't want me to cover anything else and that I might have missed that was glaring.
No, that sounds great. And actually, as I said before, just feel free to chip in when I'm kind of going on my section.
I'll pass over to you.
Okay, no worries. So do you want to pop my slide up, Helen, when you're ready? So I'm often asked, what is the secret to winning a Gold Quill? And I tend to say to people, there isn't really a secret, or if it is, it's a very open one, because it's one of the most transparent set of awards that I have ever come across, and I've evaluated on other awards, and I've obviously entered other awards as well. So we all know those awards where you enter them, you don't know who the evaluators are, you don't know what criteria you're being judged against. This absolutely isn't one of them. So what I wanted to talk to you about was just to kind of bring to life who's going to be evaluating for you, kind of what we've got in common, what we go through. I'll talk about the process, so the evaluation process. I'm going to give you some top tips and then next steps. So that's kind of what I'm going to step through. So this is my 3rd year of being chair of the Blue Ribbon panel. I think I was an evaluator for 2 years before that. So and I'm really, really proud of the rigor that goes into the Gold Quill. So the picture you can see here, this year we evaluated remotely. Often we're in a room, but there are 11 panels like this globally. So from Australia, South Africa, Canada, Dubai. So we have 11 panels across the world. and there are some 200 plus evaluators that look at each and every entry. The evaluators themselves, we all have at least 10 years experience. Most of us have a lot more experience than that. And we tend to be professionally qualified. So either an IABC qualification, so SCMP or ABC. Personally, I'm a chartered PR practitioner. So that's kind of the level of evaluator that you have. And it doesn't matter whether you've been evaluating for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and whether you've been involved in the Gold Quills for like 10 years as well. Every one of us has to go through training. So it's a full hour online training and we have to pass it. And we have to do refreshers as well every year, just to make sure that kind of we're consistent. So if I'm going to say anything about the award, it's going to be around the consistency. So that's who we are. In terms of the process, I think we really do recognise the time and effort it takes you to go into an award. So what we do is absolutely respect every single entry. So how it will work is we will all be given a number of entries to evaluate on our own. So I think between 6 and 8 entries a year, depending on how many we get in. We will all do those individually. So for me, it takes about an hour to go through every single entry because we go through them really detailed and rigorously against the 7-point global scale of excellence. So that's how we evaluate them. And then we are paired with someone. So I will have a set of 6 or 8 entries, and then someone else will have the same 6 or 8 entries. And we will both evaluate them individually, and they will come together on a kind of a blue ribbon panel day, and we will get together and we'll consolidate. So this isn't just about saying, you know, I scored this one a 6, I scored this one a 6, fine, let's move on. We actually have a discussion about every single mark, because one of the things that we are really keen on is that whether you are awarded a Gold Quill or you fall short of a gold quill, that you get really good comments, good quality comments. So that's where a lot of the day goes. It's around providing either kind of positive feedback. So, you know, this is why we awarded you a 5, a 6 or a 7, or kind of matters for improvement. And that's really important because you are allowed to re-enter a Gold Quill award if, for example, you didn't win one the previous year, so long as it sits within the right time scale. So we kind of consolidate them together. Sometimes we're having a conversation, and because we're all together on a blue ribbon day, we might call someone else across as well. So that is literally the rigor that goes into every single application. And I would probably think that probably every application has about 5 hours time spent on it. So kind of we evaluate them like that. Then we consolidate all our scores, and then they go to HQ, who also sample. So they'll pull some out and they'll sample them. And then any that are kind of borderline, there's a couple of things that happen with borderline applications. So we really want them to succeed. So we will, you know, if something's really, really close, we'll get lots of people around and we're like, you know, is there any way where else that we can get an extra mark on to try and push people over the line? But that also happens at HQ as well, because we kind of really do want people to win one. So they're consolidated. And then a couple of months later, they're announced, and, you know, next year people will get to celebrate at a gala dinner within New York. So that's a little bit about the process. Have I missed anything on the process there? That's kind of pretty much the process, isn't it, Neil?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just going to step onto some top tips, because I think this is kind of almost kind of what I wish I'd known had I been entering a Gold Quill Award. So these are the same conversations that we pretty much have kind of every year. So bearing in mind that, you know, all the information is there for you to access. So you see the criteria, you even see that the marking sheet or the rubric that we as evaluators use to evaluate them again. So I would always say, number one, start early and read the materials carefully, and then read them again, because again, it's disappointing to have to either disqualify an entry, we really hate doing that, or kind of something just misses out because they haven't read the instructions. Think about the category you enter, would be my number 2. So you can enter for more than one category, but again, sometimes you think, oh, would this one have been better in a slightly different category? So just really kind of have a look at the category, the terms and conditions, and just really, think that's the category you can enter and then spend your time in that.
But and just to add to that, Anne-Marie, the one thing I would say about that is that the category you enter kind of sets expectations for what you're going to see from an evaluator's perspective. So if you end up with a disconnect between what the category that's been chosen and what the project is, it can create a little bit of a sort of an issue. And so the category and division really situates the evaluator. So think carefully about that.
Yeah, thank you. Answer every question and provide everything the evaluator needs. So again, it's kind of almost like upsetting when you think you know what someone is leading to, but we can't guess because we have a very strict rubric that we need to follow. So we can only evaluate what is written down. And so if a question is missed, so the one that's missed a lot is budget. So, if the budget is confidential, then kind of just give us a ballpark so we can know whether it's kind of, relative or not relative. I'd also say it's not just the big budget programs that win, and in fact it's sometimes not better, but we've seen some programs win on very small and hardly any budget because they kind of met the criteria. So answer every question. My big one here. So ensure that objectives are measurable. So we ring a little bell if someone's mentioned AVE. So there's enough on the websites about measurement. So obviously your objectives need to be SMART. Try not to do your objectives at the end of the program. So this is about using the work plan as a way to structure your work in any case, because we're all experienced. We're all practicing communicators. We can all tell when objectives have been retrofitted. So don't do that. Align your results with objectives. Again, I see this a little bit too often. So someone will have taken time having some really good SMART objectives, and then when it comes to the results bear no resemblance to the objectives they've set. So again, we can't mark that because in fact one of the questions is, do the results align with the objectives? And we can't, in all honesty, say yes for that. Also make sure that, as communicators, we know how important it is to align our work to the organization's vision, mission and objectives. That's the question that we're asked. So, great points again there. If we can see the link to the vision, mission and objectives with the organizations, sometimes, being experienced communicators, being experienced evaluators, we can work it out. But again, we can't guess, and we can't score you if we can work it out. You need to make that clear. Describing your audiences well. So again, thinking about who you're targeting and breaking them down. So this is the audience, this is the group of audience, this is what we understood about the audience, because what we again want to see is that you actually understand the audience that you're targeting. So try and describe them well. Include work samples. Again, we can't score them if there are no work samples with the work plan. I can't remember. Can you remember what percentage of the marks go to the work sample? It's quite significant, isn't it? You're not going to get a gold quill if you don't provide.
It depends.
Yeah,
it really depends on the division and the category, but in the communication management one, it's 50-50. And in the communication skills, there's an even greater weighting to the work sample. So that means that it's even more important that you include the actual work that was done. So yeah, this is a great point, and it's amazing actually. Sometimes you'll see this great work plan, and you think be really excited about what you're going to see in the sample, and then you see 1 or 2 news releases, and that's about it, and then basically the whole score falls down.
Yeah, because we're not Googling, we're not looking at the websites. No. We just can't do that. We can only, the work sample can be a video, for example, but if you think we've got 6 or 8, we're spending at least an hour on every single one. We're just not doing that. So include your work samples, please, and ensure the work samples align to the work plan as well. That's another top tip. Right, for the evaluators. So I'm an evaluator, Neil's an evaluator. I think we've got Rachel here that's been an evaluator. I think even Andrew's an evaluator. We have lots of previous evaluators here. So think that we know nothing about your organization, nothing about your program, on the website, there is the scoring rubric that we actually use. So even if you kind of do your application, maybe go through yourself and honestly see kind of how you would score things, but, write with us in mind, and maybe get a trusted friend or colleague or someone else just to proofread your entry against the rubric, just to check that you haven't missed anything out. And then even if you ignore kind of all of, well, apart from number one, all of the other tips, I would just say use the Gold Quill resources. Never before have I seen like an organization literally put everything out there for you to see. So the Gold Quill website that Neil shared earlier, nearer the time, there will be kind of more detailed webinars. You can read winning case studies. If you're struggling with how to set your objectives, you can see how other people have done it. But, they're there for you to use. So I would encourage you to use them. Have I missed any tips, do you think, Neil? I think they're the ones.
No, the tips are amazing. And thanks for thoughtfully putting them together, because you've covered things that I probably wouldn't have remembered to do. So that's excellent. The one thing I would say is that that we haven't focused here on specifically how to enter. We've flipped it around, and that's primarily because you'll have a load of stuff available from HQ on how to enter, and there'll be webinars galore about that. So we've tried to flip it around, and I think it's we don't really see that as much in the materials that come out. So particularly that point about having the evaluator in mind is a really important one, because that influences a lot in terms of your success rate.
Rachel, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Probably no surprise from me. I just want to say a couple of things on measurement. I just popped in the chat the hours and hours and hours of training and evaluate. It's extremely extensive, definitely, extremely rigorous. And the fact that we do it in pairs and then as a group, it's very, very thorough. And a debate around whether people have measured output versus outcomes is massive, and a really big discussion point and a major factor on certainly when I've been doing it in terms of how well we score people, because output is we sent a letter to lots of people, but an outcome would be, and they turned up to the event or bought the product. Just posting something or reaching people isn't the actual outcome, because the outcome was you were trying to invite people to an event or sell a thing, whatever you were trying to achieve. So that's a massive debate, in making sure that you're really clear on the two different things. So just measuring people engaged with our social media content doesn't mean they bought the thing, turned up, did what you were actually trying to achieve for the business. And I feel that's really important for us to all get our heads around. And also the measurement point is, if you can measure before as well as after, to show that you moved the needle, moved the dial, pushed the dial, sold more things, whatever it is you were trying to achieve, and that you know the difference. So if you get to the end and you say 80% of people said it was brilliant, that's not as valuable to an evaluator or the award entry as knowing what people thought of it before your intervention. And it's that showing the difference from the beginning to the end, or sort of the before and after. And if you can get those points in, it was such a hot debate and such a really important thing to get your head around, I think, for any great comms, let alone particularly for trying to win a Gold Quill as well. I just really wanted to passionately put those points across.
Thank you. That was very passionate. You've just reminded me, actually, Rachel, one of the other things that we do, because obviously kind of helping the profession is a key part of what we do as volunteers, is that during the lunch break, we all get together and we talk about what we've seen. And measurement is always kind of one of the things that we observe and try and make sure that throughout the year we're kind of putting in place things to help you. Just a final thing from me then, Helen, I'm just going to give you some key dates if you are tempted and you're keen to join me in New York next June. Some of the key dates, really. So January may sound a long way away, but it really isn't, because what I would encourage everyone to do is start getting your evidence together early, so you can do a really good application. It's a little bit cheaper if you do it before the late deadline. The other thing that I would say is if you are doing this on behalf of an organization or client, there are some kind of permissions that you also need to get and make sure that you've got in place. So I would do that too. So I think that's the end of my formal bit. I think maybe open up for questions if anyone's got any questions or comments or observations that they want to share.
Just as a reminder, we were going to use the hands up facility. If anyone does wish to ask a question, or if you're shy, you can put it in the chat. That's totally cool. We don't mind if you're shy or if you have a lot of background noise, that kind of thing.
Hey, Andrew, nice to see you. You need to come off mute, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry for joining late, problems with the connection. One thing I just wanted to say, having evaluated a couple of times now, is I would say quality, not quantity. So some of the entries, they think that, you know, once they've done the initial written entry, they just shovel as much stuff as possible into the supporting evidence. And some of you think, oh yeah, it's another one of those tedious videos. You know, just add in what is relevant, you know, what is really going to help your application. You know, a variety across different channels and look like, to the earlier point, that it's relevant to what you said the objective was. You know, we've seen a few where we just end up downgrading them because we just think, well, okay, you don't try and bamboozle the judges because we know what we're looking for.
I would absolutely agree with that. You know, throwing in hundreds of pages is not actually going to do you any favors, because it's probably going to make it harder for us to evaluate. You know, we're going to have to wade through so much more. Whereas if you focus your choices, and I think you actually can only upload 5 different elements in a sample. So what a lot of people tend to do is put, I don't know, let's say there was a bunch of social media coverage. They would, you know, pop that into a PDF. Some of them I've seen over 100 pages long. That's going to be very difficult for us in the time that we've got as evaluators to go through every word of that. So first of all, it's a bit of a waste of time and effort on the entrance part. And it also makes it harder for us to cut through all of that and see what specific aspects of that were applicable. One tip that I would make, and it's something that I've seen in successful entries, is that in that section 4 in the solution overview, is that you actually signpost where in the work sample to look. So if you're describing what you did, you would just, you know, put in brackets C work sample 1 or what have you, and that really helps us make that connection between the choices that you made, why you made them, and how that then turned out in execution.
Yeah, you've just reminded me there, Neil, actually. One of the things that I didn't cover is, unlike other awards where you're in competition with other organisations, that you're only in competition with yourself, because you either achieve a gold quill or a merit, or you don't. So if you pass that line, that's it, it's a gold quill. So it's not as though we're kind of trying to rank you with other people's, which again kind of makes it unique.
We have a question in the chat from Jeanette. Oh, sorry, Rachel, were you going to add?
I was going to say exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's does the Gold Quill Award allow for comms work that's done with the support of an external agency to execute? I'm pretty sure it does, because I think I remember evaluating some of those. Yeah,
absolutely. And
yeah.
The one I wasn't anything to do with the awards, but certainly the one that when I was at Barclays they won was done by an agency with kind of using Barclays work as an example. So absolutely it does. You just need to make sure you get that release form, which is kind of the permission.
I would say a very large percentage of the entries that we see globally are coming in from those that have worked with agencies. And indeed, I think there are a number of agencies that see this as one way of demonstrating their own success as an agency. So without a doubt, I agree with Anne-Marie that you need to make that relationship clear and try not to confuse the evaluator in terms of who did the work and how that was all set up.
Mhm.
And
It's
indeed,
also-
one other point, sorry, Anne-Marie, was that those agencies that do enter either multiple categories or submit multiple entries for different projects that they've worked on with clients, one of our special awards is Agency of the Year. So we do sort of acknowledge the agency role.
Yeah, I was also going to say it's not just internal comms as well. So it's corporate comms, marketing comms. It's it's a whole spectrum of business communications, and there's also kind of student and research categories as well. So it's kind of really the full circle, and
it's really comprehensive.
Yeah, and even if it's student entries and research entries, we've even got evaluators that have got like specific experience in doing that as well. So definitely encouraged to think a bit broader about kind of ones that you enter.
Okay, so I think if we don't have any more questions, I would say thank you ever so much to Neil and Anne-Marie for presenting and sharing your experience. Thank you to those of you who've dialed in and to those who are doing a listen again. And it is really a massive undertaking, and so it's really helpful to have it described in a short period of time and to just kind of explain how it works and also how rigorous it is. And again, if you don't achieve a gold quill, you will get some really detailed, useful, constructive feedback. So it is really worth it as a kind of testing your own workbench. As you say, you're only sort of benchmarking against yourself. It's really, really valuable. So thank you very much. And I'm sure if you dial into future networking events, we have a monthly last Thursday of the month networking event, you'll have the opportunity to chat further with those of us in here as well about the Gold Quill, because say the entries don't close until early sort of first quarter 2022. And just to remind you as well that this is member month, so there's 20% discount from the international dues regardless of when your renewal is. So for example, mine's January, but if I pay now I'll get the discount and it will kick in for January. So I'm so sorry, I have a bit of noise in the background, so I'm just going to close. Does anyone else have any final words?
Good luck. I hope to see you entry.
See you in New York, hopefully, as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.